Hi. So you've heard today a lot about different deployment models of AI, different ways on how to use AI in governments in different countries. I'm here to be the lady who tells you not to run with the scissors. To be frank, I'm not going to tell you not to use the scissors, nor am I going to tell you not to let the scissors define how you live. But I am going to tell you to be careful while using the scissors and be mindful that they could hurt you, they could hurt others, and just take care to assess the risks before you start running. You cannot stop the future. The bleeding edge technologies will be adopted whether the regulation exists or it doesn't. For instance, ChatGPT reached 100 million users in 2 months, and it kept going. Always, when adopting new technologies, you have to assess the risks first. In a lot of the companies, risk assessment methodology and risk handling methodology has been deployed, and in those cases, it is easy to actually also deploy it to AI, but the question is whether companies, when deploying AI, are thinking of the AI-specific risks. When deploying AI, you're dealing with two kinds of risks. You're dealing with the everyday, we're taking new technology into use, all of the cybersecurity risks that you need to think of. But in addition, you have to also think of the AI-specific risks. And I've brought out 3 risks that are AI and also data science specific. They're not just AI, it is for everything where you're using data science and machine learning. So, for instance, risk 1 is that the training and input data, the personal information or company secrets used in AI models are not sufficiently protected. And the damage from this is that data are processed illegally, rights are violated, or business secrets disclosed. Now, what you have to consider is that actually when you are training a model, this is data processing. So even if you're training it for better anonymization of text data, or you're training it for data synthesis, or whatever you're training it for, you're processing data, and this goes under GDPR, and you have to have legal rights to actually do that. The second risk that I wanted to talk about is that the AI model that comes out of this training is of low quality, and its input is incorrect. The problem is that the system might not have a desired effect, and its predictions can discriminate against or cause harm to individuals. And this might not be a very big issue if, for instance, someone is making a school report and they write maybe not very correct things in their school report, but it becomes a problem when we're talking about, for instance, clinical decision support or support for legal or prosecution data. And here, a person looking at the model has to be very careful to actually make sense of what the model or what AI is telling them to do. Because, for instance, if I look at a report on privacy, then I can find the mistakes that are there. But if I look at a report on, for instance, art history, then I might not I might not be able to tell the difference between an actual historic fact and between something that the AI is hallucinating. So here it very much makes a difference who is the target audience of the AI system and whether they're actually qualified to tell the difference on about what is being told them, what is being kind of generated by the AI. And the third risk that's very obviously has to be considered is that, let's say you already have an AI model that has been trained by someone else, and whoever has trained it has had the right to include personal information or business secrets or intellectual property. However, the user of it might actually not have a legal right to use that model, to use the data underneath. So all of the derivative works or all of the data generating that they do might actually not be legal. So that is the damage from that. I want to talk about actually 3 studies that Cybernetica has been doing. And the first one of them is about privacy-enhancing technologies. So privacy-enhancing technologies are technologies that don't erase the issue of privacy concerns. They're not a magic wand that can magically wave away the issue of legally being allowed to actually process data. But they are a way to mitigate the effects of people having access to data. They are a way, they can be considered sufficient measures to actually help with processing the data. So the first, the privacy-enhancing technologies in e-government project was procured by the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications, and it ended with a privacy-enhancing technologies concept, catalog, and roadmap for taking the technologies into use in Estonia. The second project that I want to look at is the study of AI and machine learning risks and their mitigation, plus educational videos. And this was procured by the Information Systems Authority, and this project is now ongoing. I'm going to talk about the third project a bit later, but right now, what we're doing in the second project is that we're looking at the risks of AI. And again, we're looking at the cybersecurity risks that any AI system might have. But we're also looking at the risks that are AI specific. So in addition to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability issues, we are looking at questions of ethics of AI, questions of the same risks that I already listed, the issues of if the model is biased, if the data that the model has been trained on is of low quality, then the results will be of low quality. I'm talking about risks that are very specific to AI. For that to be possible to actually for us to analyze all of the AI in the world, we have made a hierarchy of different deployments of AI services. Now, here is a simplified version of this hierarchy, and we basically look at this from a point of view of privacy. Then, looking at it, you basically want to figure out where your model comes from and where your data comes from. So the first and the most easy, or the easiest version of this is when your model is your own, you trained your model, and the data is your own. You collected the data and you have consent from users, or maybe it's not user data. You have a legal right to process these data to actually train a model. So this is the easiest version. You're doing everything in-house. Then we go from that to actually where the model comes from. If it's an external model, or if it's your model and the data is external. So in a case where the model is external, but you take it in-house and you use your own data to look at it, and then in a case where the model is from a service provider, which could be you, or it could be someone else's, but sold through you, in that case, and then the data comes from clients. And there are 2 versions of this as well. One of them is where you take the data to the model. So this is a simple ChatGPT version, for example, when you basically paste your data into the ChatGPT window, and then ChatGPT gives you an answer. So you have no idea where those data are going. They're just there. They're probably saved. Who knows who's doing what with those data? They're gone. They're out in the internet now. And the other case is when the model is moved to the data, and this is a case of federated learning. In this case, you're sending the data to the client, you're sending it for them to use somehow, whether you get model updates back. If you don't get model updates back, it's similar to the case of external model my data, but if you're sending model updates back, then this is a case where it is considered, it could be considered federated learning. And then we have Estonian bureaucrat, which Siim also talked about. This is very complex environment that has elements from all of these cases where you're using many models from different sources and also have many data providers. Now, in this case, when we're talking about risks, in the first, where it's my model and my data, what I have to make sure is that I have a legal basis for processing the data. And that is my main risk there. It's also the same when I'm using data from clients. So maybe I'm a service provider for the model, and the clients are giving me data, but then I have to make sure that I actually have a right to process these data to train a model. In the case of external model, my data, I have to make sure that I'm actually allowed to use these data, and I have to make sure that the model is of high quality. So how do I make sure? Well, I probably test it somehow. It's maybe coming from a credible source. So if you take it from, for instance, the Tartu Natural Language Processing Lab, then you would they have scientific papers, research papers. So you're assuming that this is peer-reviewed, that they have a high-quality language model. You can also test it. You can see how well it translates. You can understand that, okay, this is of sufficient quality for me, and then I can take it in-house and I can use it. If we're talking about when data is moved to the model, then now it is the user's case to make sure that they are actually allowed to send data to the service provider and where the service provider is located. Because if you're sending your data to a server in the United States, then the United States has different laws than Europe does. So it is different. You have to consider that this is different. It is okay to accept the risk and just send the data, but it's very important to actually look at the risk and assess the risk, and then see what you can do with it. Going to privacy-enhancing technologies, and in a moment you'll understand why I'm talking about this. So privacy-enhancing technologies are usually, in Europe, we divide them into 3 parts, based on the privacy goals that they try to implement. And the privacy goals are unlinkability, transparency, and intervenability. Now, unlinkability is by far the most studied, and I have a feeling this is because it is a technology that the service provider can do for you. So this is how we're protecting your data. We're putting kind of a cage around it, or we're using methods, but you don't need to worry about it. You, as the data subject, you just give us your data and we'll make sure that it's okay. Now, the 2 other privacy goals, transparency and intervenability, those are more user-oriented. They give the user more agency. Transparency means that I know what's being done with my data, and intervenability means that I can actually at any point say, stop, I don't want you to process my data anymore, delete everything. So I can intervene in the process and say, I don't want my data to be used this way. I now realize I forgot to tell you what unlinkability technologies were. Unlinkability technologies are that my data are processed in a way that no one actually sees what my data are. They're processed in a kind of either encrypted way or pseudonymized way or anonymized way, but they're done in a way that no one knows what the data are. And it's, of course, by far more difficult to implement transparency and intervenability technologies because they require the user to be interfacing with the system, and it's extra work, so it is difficult. But it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be implemented. They are actually even maybe more important than the other technologies. So the research that we did for this project was ended up in 2 reports. They are unfortunately only in Estonian, but it's still, I think they're worth reading. One of them gives an overview of the different technologies and their use cases in e-government, and the other is more Estonia-specific and gives a very step-by-step guide on how to deploy them in e-government. Now, moving to federated learning, this is one way where this is also considered one privacy-enhancing technology, and this is when we don't actually move the data to the model, but we take the model to the data, and then we train on our data, and then we combine the model afterwards to make a bigger model that takes care of, or that encompasses everyone's data. However, in this case, first the central analysis computer chooses a model to be trained and sends it to data computers. The data computers train their model locally and then send it to the central computer that then combines it into a central model. However, the problem with this technology is that AI models often leak information about the data on which they were trained. So what you can do is, and what actually this federated learning is a system that all Android users actually have in their pockets, because the Android keyboard, the Gboard, this is how it works. It takes your keyboard, your typing in, it encrypts this model, it sends it to the central computer. The models there are combined in encrypted format. So the point is that they never open your individual updates, but they do open the combined updates, and they open it only if there are 1,000 updates there. So what you get is a combined update. It's just not your data, but it's a data of also 999 other people. So you don't get someone's typings, but you get a kind of aggregated model. And then they update their model. Now, there is a way of doing this, not only just by sharing the model, and not only sharing the updates in encrypted format, but there is a way to do everything in encrypted format. And this is the third project that I wanted to talk about. We are also looking into optimizing cryptographic protocols for AI. So what we want to do is train neural networks under secret sharing. And the issue is that often the privacy-enhancing technologies introduce an overhead. So what you need to do more work. It is an overhead in communication, and it is an overhead in computation. And this means you have to, if we're talking about AI, you have to maybe pay more for your communication and pay more for your computation. And it also takes more time. So the computation cost is basically time. Now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to find ways of optimizing this, because you probably know that training neural networks in the open is already difficult and time-consuming. So if you add an overhead to this, it is even more time-consuming. And this is what we're trying to do in this Office of Naval Research Global project. And this project is ongoing. This is a longer project, where the others were basically a year, and the first one was even shorter. Then this is a 3-year project. And what we're trying to do is to actually create a system where you can train on very sensitive data. You can train your model. The model will never be revealed to anyone. All the training is done in a secret shared format. It travels in secret shared format, and afterwards, all of the inference that you do in neural networks, that is also done under secret sharing. You basically only open the answer, which is either in decision support, it is either a suggestion, or maybe a yes or no if we're talking about a decision for going to whether you're allowed to go somewhere, or whether you're allowed to join the Navy or the Army or whatever. So this could also be used by allies to share very sensitive information. We've used the system for detecting satellite collisions, so that you of course don't want your satellite data to be open to two different countries, but you don't want your satellites to collide either. So this is a way you can do this collaborative analysis, and then later have an answer that, okay, you need to move your satellite, but you don't know whose satellite you're going to collide with. You just know that you need to change something. Yes. And we're hoping that this will advance the science into making this more feasible, the privacy-preserving AI more feasible. Thank you.
So this was, I was just saying, the conference gets getting better and better with the presentations, even though the first ones were absolutely amazing as well. I have one really interesting question for you, and this comes from Workshop. Is somebody currently systematically examining how the EU states and companies train their AI models, especially this, I would say, the EU states train their AI models? And do we know what data they use? Is there any regulation on that? Because we know AI Act is there, but isn't really implemented in the States. So
the AI Act is not yet also in Europe. It is coming very soon, we hope. We hope that it will be maybe accepted this year. So there are ongoing discussions on that. Well, in Europe, I'm hoping that everything is done according to GDPR, and I think but GDPR is very careful. So not a lot of the data. At least we're again hoping that everyone is using the data according to the law. Mm-hmm. So we have a different viewpoint on how data are used as compared to the United States, but I think that it doesn't need to stand in the way of progress. So I think we can still use the data, and if the models are more sensitive, then we can not reveal the models, and we can still gain some knowledge from the data, because that's what we want, right? Why are we actually even collecting the data if not to actually gain information from that and to gain benefits from that? But as for whether someone is taking note of that, there are studies that are looking at what is being done. But the problem is that the studies it's hard to keep up. Mm-hmm. Because the field is developing so fast, and the models are developing so fast, so that it's difficult to kind of have an overview, let's say a very comprehensive overview, when next week last week there was the OpenAI summit, and then there you get like a dozen more, or you get like this new paradigm, and then everyone is making their own GPT versions, and then what are you training on? What is going on? So it's just very difficult to follow. So I don't think there is one comprehensive a report, but there are several different reports on different aspects. Mm-hmm. So there is the risk assessment aspect is also being looked at. So it's not only us who are doing that, but we are trying to be more Estonia specific as well. Okay, so we need faster regulations. Don't have more time to discuss at this moment, but we'll discuss this in the panel later. So I will give the word to Ott now to introduce the next speaker.